It's December 8th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the U.S. National Defense Authorization Act. The final defense policy bill includes a call to further cement its alliance with South Korea, in line with the Washington Declaration adopted by the leaders of the two countries in April. To do that, the U.S. will keep the current 28,500 troops stationed in South Korea. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Hezbollah not to trigger a third Lebanon war with Israel, saying his military will turn Lebanon's capital into Gaza and Khan Yunis, while at least 350 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza in the past 24 hours. On the occasion of President Yoon Suk-yeol's visit to the Netherlands next week, South Korea is hopeful that the two countries will set up a chip alliance on top of deepening their collaboration on nuclear power, defense, and advanced technology. The National Defense Authorization Act, outlining the U.S. military budget for 2024, came out just hours ago. Washington's defense and security commitment to South Korea has again been underscored. Our An Sung-jin takes a closer look.
The U.S. Senate and House Armed Services Committees have reached an agreement on the National Defense Authorization Act, which outlines next year's military spending. The committees announced the NDAA for the 2024 fiscal year on Thursday, which stated that the U.S. government maintained the current number of 28,500 U.S. armed forces in South Korea. The provision also strengthened the U.S. commitment to providing extended deterrence to South Korea. It added that the United States must continue efforts to strengthen military alliances and defense intelligence sharing in the Indo-Pacific region to gain advantage over China. The bill also emphasized that it would reinforce the U.S. alliance with South Korea by fortifying security cooperation on nuclear deterrence, which was highlighted in the Washington Declaration, a mutual defense treaty that was agreed in April on South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to the U.S. The explanatory statement by the committees also explained the conditions under which the South Korean military forces could assume operational control of the ROK U.S. combined forces on the Korean peninsula, as Congress asked to evaluate the extent to which the Korean military has achieved the conditions for this. It further requested that the Defense Department report progress to the Congress within 180 days of the enactment of the law regarding the transfer of wartime operational control to Korea. The NDAA had already been passed separately by the Senate and House before being approved by the joint committees. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatened Hezbollah that Beirut will turn into Gaza if it attacks Israel. Now, the warning came as at least 350 Palestinians were reportedly killed in the past 24 hours. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
Speaking to troops on Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent a stern warning to Hezbollah, saying that if the Lebanese militant group decides to initiate an all-out war with Israel, it will turn Beirut into Gaza.
If Hezbollah chooses to start an all-out war, then it will, by its own hand, turn Beirut and southern Lebanon, not far from here, into Gaza and Khan Yunis.
The warning from the Israeli Prime Minister came hours after a guided missile attack by Hezbollah killed a 60-year-old man in northern Israel. According to Gaza's health ministry on Thursday, around 350 Palestinians were killed in Israeli-led attacks in a 24-hour span, with another 1,900 injured. It added that the cumulative death toll since the start of the armed conflict has surpassed 17,000, with 46,000 injured. Meanwhile, a U.S. official said the U.S. needs to strengthen its missile defenses around the world due to the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East, as the burden on its limited missile defense capabilities is increasing. According to Claire Gill, the Deputy Director for Regional Operations and Force Management, at a hearing of the House Armed Services Committee's Strategic Forces Subcommittee on Thursday, growing geopolitical tensions around the world are increasingly burdening the U.S. military's integrated air and missile defense capabilities. He said commanders in each region continue to request missile defense units, but the military cannot meet demand and is struggling to strike a balance between high-priority regions and regions that need missile defenses immediately. Thursday's hearing focused on how missile defense systems, such as the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense and Patriot missiles, which are in high demand worldwide but are limited in quantity, are being deployed by region and its plans to secure assets. Also mentioned was U.S. defense missile cooperation with allies like South Korea and Japan. 이승재, Arirang News.
We're halfway into the 28th meeting of the UN Climate Change Conference, COP28, taking place in the UAE this year. But climate talks that are seemingly more urgent than ever are in a murky middle ground regarding climate goals. For more, let's turn to Dr. John Mutter this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Dr. Mutter, there was an agreement on a loss and damage deal. The leaders also pledged to triple renewable generation capacity by 2030. What other breakthrough achievements would you highlight?
I can't think of any. And the problem is that although countries honestly make commitments to do certain things by certain times, they really don't know how to do it. You know, we could talk about a 1.5 degree target or a 2 degree target, but nobody actually knows how to meet those targets.
Right. That's exactly why there are concerns that this year's UN climate talks may not produce the first global agreement to, phase out fossil fuel use. What's the struggle here? Is it because it's being held in a major oil producer? What do you think?
The fact that it's been held in Dubai is, what can I say? It's bizarre. It's a major oil producing region. The chair is, a senior person in the development of oil in the Emirates. There's two things here. One is to say, this is ridiculous because, 90% of people would say we have to reduce fossil fuels. The other perspective is to say, well, we really need to engage the oil industry. If we make them enemies, there's just going to be a standoff. So, how can we join with these big companies to do something important for the planet?
Right. In the meantime, though, it is almost official that this year, the year of 2023, will be the hottest year on record. What is it, Dr. Mutter, do you think the leaders at the climate summit must come to agree on this at this year's meeting, although there are much pessimistic opinions on the summit for now?
Yeah, agreeing on temperature limits is very good, but we need to agree on some sort of technological pathway. It's all about how we reduce emissions, how we capture emissions that have already happened. We need to push the technologies that do that rather than just make vague claims about how we're going to get to some temperature target, net zero, when we don't know how to do it.
Right. Now, we are speaking about the COP28, and I cannot help but talk about or address the summit's president, whose recent remarks were seen as quite controversial. So he said there is no science behind the demand to phase out fossil fuels to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, like you mentioned earlier. Dr. Mutter, what's your take on the comment?
He's wrong. He's quite simply wrong. 99% of all climate scientists would tell you that he's wrong. And I don't know where he gets his opinion from. It's certainly not from a dispassionate, close examination of the science. It's an opinion. It's not something that comes from a review of the scientific literature. That's not what he's done.
Right, that's why it's remaining still controversial. Dr. Murdo, before I let you go, Russian President Vladimir Putin also made it to Dubai on the occasion of the climate summit over in UAE. How active would you say Russia is in tackling global climate issues?
Very modestly. Their economy very much depends on the extraction and sale, export of fossil fuels. It would be a big blow to the Russian economy if really serious reductions in carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel burning were seriously curtailed. I mean, their economy depends on it, and they don't have too many alternates to what the economy depends on right now.
Right, like I mentioned, we are halfway into the summit. We still have a couple of days to really come to an agreement on those ditching fossil fuels. For the next few days, Dr. Murdo, what do you think will be the hottest topic at the summit?
It'll be the same topic that's been the hottest topic on all the summits. Should be the temperature target, but it's probably not the right thing to do. We should have technology targets. We should have, how many direct air capture systems should we be putting in place? The temperature targets, I think, are deceptive. Nobody knows how to meet them, but we know about engineering, and we know about economics, and we know how to make progress. But nobody that I know in my field is particularly impelled by the idea that at Paris, the temperature target went down from 2 degrees to 1.5 degrees. That did not motivate anybody that I know.
Right. Hopefully, maybe there will not be an agreement, but maybe some sort of fruitful outcomes of that summit. Thank you so much for your insight, Dr. Murdo, this morning. You have a great evening.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be on the show.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is heading to Amsterdam next week. He'll be seeking to secure a stronger chip alliance with the Netherlands. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young tells us more.
South Korea will forge a semiconductor alliance with the Netherlands, along with close partnerships in green energy, defense and high-tech sectors. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol's office on Thursday, ahead of his trip to the Netherlands next week. First, amid geopolitical conflicts and economic instability affecting the production of semiconductors, South Korea's biggest export item, Seoul will seek to stabilize supplies of chip-making equipment for its firms. As the Netherlands is home to ASML, the world's biggest manufacturer of lithography machines used to produce over 80% of all semiconductors globally, Seoul hopes to combine Dutch equipment with South Korea's advanced chip manufacturing. With the goal of building a chip alliance across government, firms and universities, Yoon's visit will likely include deals on forming a bilateral dialogue channel on semiconductors, as well as developing joint projects. Joined by the chiefs of memory chip giants Samsung and SK Hynix, the South Korean leader will visit ASML's headquarters, becoming the first world leader to be given a tour of the Dutch company's clean room facility. Yoon's state visit to the Netherlands, the first ever for a South Korean president, comes after the two countries elevated their ties to a strategic partnership last year, agreeing to work together in crucial industries, including semiconductors, artificial intelligence and green energy.
The strategic partnership between Korea and the Netherlands will boast a security that's grounded by value-based solidarity and economic security cooperation that's based on cutting-edge technology. During this state visit, we aim to jointly respond to economic and security crises and find ways to improve supply chain vulnerabilities in strategic industries. To this end, we're discussing ways to establish a new economic and security dialogue body and hold regular consultations.
Yoon's office said the two sides will closely cooperate on common security issues such as North Korea's nuclear threats and support for Ukraine. They will also promote more exchanges and collaboration in the defense industry and emerging security fields, such as the military use of AI and cybersecurity. Furthermore, Yoon's state visit is expected to solidify the groundwork for cooperation in green energy, including nuclear power plants, as the Netherlands aims to build new facilities to increase its clean energy sources. Artificial intelligence, smart agriculture and logistics will also be key agenda items.
We plan to discuss ways to establish an export base for Korean companies at the very center of European trade by utilizing the Netherlands' advanced infrastructure and logistics system.
Economic security has been at the focus of Yoon's diplomatic outreach this year, seeking new markets and business partners for South Korea's export-dependent economy. The country's outbound shipments from October have been recovering from 13 months of negative growth on the back of stronger global demand for semiconductors. Young, Arirang News.
Along with export curbs on urea, China is now restricting the export of ammonium phosphate. That's a raw material used in chemical fertilizers. According to the Chemical Fertilizer Network, an online platform for China's chemical fertilizer industry, China's National Development and Reform Commission announced last month the halt of export inspections for ammonium phosphate. New export procedures for ammonium phosphate have been suspended since last month. Now, the commission did not announce when inspections would resume. South Korea's dependence on China for ammonium phosphate is known to be as high as 95%, and there are concerns that if export controls continue until next year's busy farming season, supply and demand for fertilizers may be affected. We're well into December, meaning there are now some excuses to go shopping for Christmas. And South Korea's retail sector is taking advantage of this holiday as an early marketing strategy to boost consumption before the year ends. Our Lee Soo-jin reports.
Christmas has already arrived in the retail sector as it's using the winter holiday as a last-ditch marketing strategy to boost consumption. South Korea's CCSI, an indicator of how consumers feel about the economy, has been declining since July. And the pessimistic consumer sentiment is being felt by department stores as operating profits of the big three all fell by double digits in the third quarter. To draw consumers, the big three department stores have built replicas of traditional Christmas markets that are bigger than ever. Here in this colossal glass house are more than 20 wooden chalets that sell seasonal beverages and souvenirs reminiscent of Europe's famous Christmas markets. Although it was inspired by Europe, the market also sells popular Korean street foods such as tteokbokki and fish cakes. To maximize holiday season sales, it was open toward the end of November and has already encouraged people to spend money.
Oh, it's so beautiful, it's so cute. I really love it. I'm sure that I'll be back to buy things for sure.
We actually just bought candy apples here and they were even better than what I imagined.
And on weekends, visitors have to wait hours just to get in. It's not just department stores like this one. They've already begun using Christmas as a marketing strategy to boost consumption. Small businesses have also begun to do the same. Inside this traditional market is a cake shop run by a young entrepreneur. In a nod to her store's location, she sells cakes made out of rice cake ingredients instead of flour. She steams the rice cake into a circular shape and is decorated with colorful frosting along with cake toppers that make it look like the cakes that we typically see in bakeries. She says that she started accepting Christmas cake orders early during the second to last week of November.
Even though this type of cake is usually bought by older people, around Christmas the demand goes up because young people also buy it.
One expert says that all these efforts are likely to pay off.
The Christmas markets and cakes will act as a catalyst of sorts that lead people to purchase items not holiday-related as well.
She added that while consumers this year might not have a large disposable income, these early Christmas marketing campaigns will motivate customers to open up their wallets. 이수진, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Xiang. We now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in South America, where the change in government in Argentina appears to have put the long-expected EU-Mercosur trade deal in jeopardy. Leaders of the 4 nations in the Mercosur trade bloc, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay, met in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday to discuss the future of the South American common market, with the EU trade deal as the main agenda. The EU-Mercosur agreement, which is more than 2 decades in the making and had been expected to be announced at the summit, would create a free trade zone comprising of some 743 million people. But the change of government in Argentina, which is to take place just 3 days after the summit, has derailed the final agreement, as Argentina will leave the decision to the incoming president, Javier Milei. Brazilian President Lula da Silva expressed frustrations as the libertarian Milei has previously said Mercosur serves no purpose. Now to Russia, where the date of the country's 2024 presidential election has been set for March 17th. Members of the Federation Council, Russia's upper house of the parliament, on Thursday voted unanimously to approve the motion. Incumbent President Vladimir Putin, who is in his 4th term in office, has not yet announced his intention to run again, but is expected to do so soon. Under current constitutional rules, Putin is eligible to stay in power for 2 more 6-year terms. While Putin currently has no real challenges to his presidency, as prominent critics of his regime are either in jail or abroad, 2 people, former lawmaker Boris Nadezhdin and Yekaterina Duntsova, a journalist and lawyer, have announced plans to run. Authorities in Colombia and Brazil are cracking down on illegal mining in the Amazon rainforest. According to the Colombian Armed Forces on Wednesday, the countries have destroyed 19 illegal gold mining dredges which are polluting rivers with mercury. Authorities reported that the illegal gold mines were producing about 23 kilograms of gold a month, worth some $1.5 million. The current bilateral operation is backed by the US and targets facilities run by the transnational criminal group Familia del Norte. Those mines reportedly dumped around 114,000 grams of mercury, polluting 68 million liters of water every month. Now, for our final story, we go to China's Sichuan province, where the deepest and largest underground lab in the world became operational on Thursday. The Deep Underground and Ultra-Low Radiation Background Facility for Frontier Physics Experiments is 2,400 meters down underneath the Jinping Mountain. According to scientists, the extreme depth of the facility makes it suitable for the study of dark matter.
Good morning. It's going to feel more like early spring today. Warm southwesterly winds will bring spring warmth to most places. Today could be remembered as one of the warmest December days on record. Speaking of which, this year's autumn was the 3rd warmest autumn on record since 1973. Then you might be wondering if we'll be covered by dusty air all day, but actually air quality will be decent except in the capital area and Chungcheongdo provinces, where the dust level could go up high in the afternoon. Meanwhile, a dry advisory has remained in place for nearly 3 weeks in parts of the east coast, so please be careful with anything that could start a fire. Even sunny skies are expected for most regions today, so we're topping out at 16 degrees, Jeju at 23 degrees this afternoon. The warming trend continues through the weekend with rain in the forecast next Monday, but temperatures will stay above norms next week. Then a week after will be a bone-chilling one. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week for a Monday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time. Enjoy your weekend.